Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Red Rising, more specifically books 5 and 6, Dark Age, and Lightbringer. Recently, in the last couple of months, I got caught up with the series, but I basically read both books back to back, and between, my own lack of motivation and just having things going on, I never really got to do a review for each of the books. I was originally going to do them both separate reviews, but I just wanted to talk about them here, so I decided to just throw them all together, throw both of them into this one video, and talk about both books, problems I had with them, and what I think is great about them. I'm not gonna dilly-dally too much because I don't want this video to go on forever. So if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, let's get into the video. So firstly, talking about Dark Age, huge improvement over Iron Gold, honestly. Iron Gold I thought was okay. There was definitely some getting used to that I needed to do, as I'm sure with a lot of people. It threw me off a little bit. I didn't think it was terrible. There was aspects of it and plot, like certain plot points that I did really like, but there was also a lot of plot decisions that I thought were kind of weird, especially for characters like Darrow, who are very important. Some of his decisions and stuff just were kind of odd to me, but in Dark Age, a lot of that is kind of solved. There's just a lot more to it. It's a huge book too, so there's just a lot more we go into. Surprisingly, probably my favorite character in this book, just like as a plot, like a POV, was probably Ephraim. Ephraim is just an awesome character who, I didn't really expect to like as much as I did when we're first introduced to him in Iron Gold. But I mean, by the end of Iron Gold and into this book, he's just really cool. So I loved seeing him get more into whatever he does, like his antics, and how he tied into the, larger threat of the Obsidians and all that, with the Volsung Fa stuff, and his interactions with Sephi and the All Tribe and everything that happens there, I thought was really cool. And yeah, I mean, there's also some really awesome moments with Darrow and Lysander, of them being on, Mercury or whatever. There was really cool parts, and the battles were cool, and just like the desperation of them being like stranded and all that. It was cool, but there was a lot that just I didn't click with, maybe. A lot of like the scale, like I forget just how large of a scale some of these things are, like these battles and some of the weaponry they're using, and the way it's described, I'm not sure. It just didn't necessarily click with me, and it was hard to imagine some of the stuff in my head. And it just felt like the time spent in like basically this desert. It was just too much, and it kind of dragged, which left large parts of Dark Age that I was looking forward to just being kind of slow and, like, I wouldn't say meandering, but just like hard to get through. And like I said, it's a huge book, so those portions were sizable. But like what was actually happening was cool. It was just like, I don't know, kind of hard to get through. But going into the second half of the book, the stuff, what do they call it? Is it the Red Doves or whatever? The big thing that happens with Virginia, and the Senate and all that stuff. That was dope. I dug that a lot when stuff actually goes down. You know, Severo is back. He's going crazy on some people, and I always liked the interactions between Mustang and Severo as well. course, we got Adrius, which I did not see coming, and just like how he's back is just really cool. It's kind of weird, and like, I don't know, I didn't see that coming at all. So that was also really cool. Again, I think it's in Dark Age towards the end, but I could be wrong. I'm just looking down there. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it was in Dark Age. So that was crazy. That whole sequence of events that happens around the Senate and stuff is pretty cool. And then the final battle area section of the book in Dark Age was also pretty cool. The return of Cassius, who, talk about zero to hero. He became one of my favorite characters in this entire series. I started off liking him, as I'm sure a lot of people did in the first book. Quickly went downhill and became my most hated character in the whole series. But there's always just been this little bit about him that you like, which is evident in Morningstar. But even then, it was a tough sell after everything that's happened, and I felt really conflicted in Morningstar. But then in Iron Gold, I liked him a lot in the relationship with Lysander, almost this, wandering space cowboy kind of vibe. I really dug that, and him having him being like this glorious knight, and then now being like, not a deserter, but in exile, and him having like a drinking problem and stuff, I thought was kind of funny and kind of endearing for the kind of character he is. We see more of that in Lightbringer as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. But now he goes through what I consider to be kind of a Jaime Lannister character arc. I think it's a very similar character, obviously without the weird incest stuff, but as far as like his role as like this glorious knight, being almost like a Kingslayer, and then not exactly in exile, but I guess kind of, and then going through major character changes and stuff, and ultimately being a really cool and redeemable character, which I didn't think would be possible for Cassius, but he proved it at the end of Dark Age and into Lightbringer. So yeah, that whole scene where he shows up at the very end in the nick of time was awesome. The whole huge chase once Lysander makes his escape with, after marking Arcos, like everything that happened there and that whole final stretch of the book was really awesome and made up for a lot of the issues that I had prior with the pacing. But yeah, a lot of the middle of that book, when it came to Lysander and Darrow, just wasn't that interesting to me, and it was just slow. But yeah, there was definitely huge parts of the book also that were just awesome, and made me love the series even more. And even though parts of it were a bit hard to get through, again, want to reiterate, by far better than Iron Gold. And then going into Lightbringer, one of my favorite books in the series. Lightbringer is awesome. I still don't think it's the best book in the series. I still think Golden Sun, with everything that book achieved, and the ending was just insane of Golden Sun, almost like a Red Wedding kind of deal. Awesome, but I think Lightbringer is a close second. It's really good. I had started it and then took a break from it because I started it right after reading Dark Age, which wasn't a good idea. I could feel myself not being very engaged with the story just because I was burnt out on Red Rising after reading an 800-page book, and one that had pacing issues at that. Going into more Red Rising, although it was really cool and I'm invested fully in this story and in these characters, it was just a lot. So I had to take a break about 20% maybe through, read something else, and then came back to it, feeling rejuvenated, so that I could appreciate the story for what it truly had to offer. But yeah, Lightbringer just was awesome. I know I keep saying that, but just the character dynamics and this whole crew that they've got going on, which ends up with, Lyria, which I completely forgot to mention about Dark Age, but the whole part with Lyria and what's her name? Victra and all that was also really entertaining. Although that whole section where Lyria is with like all of the other slave girls, did not really care for that section. I also thought that was kind of boring and just kind of like, not necessarily boring, but I was just disconnected from it. I was like, I don't really care what's happening here. But it ended up being okay, whatever. It also got very dark, and I won't say it, but if you guys know, you know. Anyways, talking about Lightbringer, just because it reminded me of, talking about Lyria reminded me of that scene that I forgot to mention. But yeah, it almost reminds me of sort of, again, going back to like the Space Cowboy comparison, and I love the idea of a good space western. Big fan of like Cowboy Bebop, and I also really like Guardians of the Galaxy, and seeing that in Red Rising is pretty cool. Just like this almost Suicide Squad-esque like motley crew of heroes, kind of like, they're not really all great people, they're just kind of from all walks of life coming together to go fly through space on their little ship. It's just a cool concept, and I love seeing it in whatever it's in. Even like Star Wars Rebels even did that. But yeah, it worked really cool here, bringing back characters like Cassius, his relationship with Lyria. I really enjoyed that whole character dynamic they had going on. Severo coming back, and of course they went to go rescue Severo, Cassius and Darrow. It was also very emotional because it almost broke me, I'm not gonna lie. At the beginning of the book, they're headed towards Mars, and just that part when Darrow gets the message from Virginia, or Mustang, whatever, where she tells him like, you can't come back yet. He hasn't seen his wife and kid in like a year probably. He's gone through hell to be able to get to where he's at now, and just when he's at the finish line, he's told, you have one last mission, you can't come home yet. Like, that was rough. But it made for an awesome story. Everything he goes through, reading like the philosophy book and stuff, and Cassius training him also, because he's sort of lost his touch. I loved everything about that. Also, introducing what's his name? I forget the dude's name. Shoot. I forget the guy's name, but the son of Ra. I forget his name, but when he's captured by Darrow and stuff, and he sort of joins their crew, kind of. He's sort of like the black sheep on their crew, because he's really like their enemy, but then he slowly warms up to them, and everything with the Ra and all that was also really cool. Just that whole little crew. And then going over to Lysander, I'm starting to see why people don't like him. In Iron Gold, he was one of my favorite characters, just because I thought him having this arc that's similar to Darrow, him just being like he's like Darrow, but just like the opposite. Like, he's a different side of the same coin, and just like the duality between the two, I think is really cool. I can't wait for them to face off again. But yeah, no, Lysander does kind of make me mad. Like, he's a decent character to follow. I like it. He makes sense, but yeah, I don't know. There's something about him, and I understand why people don't care for Lysander, but I like him at the same time just because he's cool, but he's kind of a brat, and yeah, I feel like a lot of times Darrow, yes, he relies a lot on the people around him, but Darrow is just so cool that even if he didn't have the supporting cast, I feel like he's just a one-man army. But Lysander, just because he's royalty, he just feels cheap. It's like, bro, put you in a 1v1 against Darrow, you're gonna get clapped, kid. You're trash. Like, don't even play, bro. And I don't know. Just, I feel like circumstances make it to where Lysander has the upper hand against Darrow, but realistically, Darrow would stomp his face in. Like, anyway, Lysander just makes me mad. Speaking of dueling against Darrow, the Volsung Fa scene, where, what's her nuts? Volga is going to, like, execute, Lyria. I think that's what's gonna happen, or something like that. But then they were hiding in the giant sea serpent or whatever, and they have the whole battle against Volsung Fa, and then you guys know what I'm talking about. That was also just an awesome duel. I could go on and on talking about just the specific moments. But yeah, it was awesome. There's so many moments in this book that are just really cool. And I felt like in a lot of ways it was a return, Pierce Brown's return to his roots. And what I mean by that, it was just very, the story direction, and just plot points and character moments, I guess, that I felt were missing from Iron Gold and Dark Age, that are just reminiscent of OG Red Rising. The first 3 books were present in this, and it felt like we were right back at home. Yeah, it was awesome. It was just a super big improvement, in my opinion, over, I mean, Iron Gold, obviously, and even Dark Age. And I've heard a few other people say this, but after reading Lightbringer, it made me like Dark Age more, because they're very, like, obviously the books are sequential and they matter to each other, but, like, I feel like those 2 books are just very important together. And Dark Age on its own, it had a lot of the faults, but the payoffs in Lightbringer made Dark Age feel more worth it, which I did like too. But yeah, I mean, it's easily one of the best books in the series. There's just, like, again, so much cool stuff and cool character moments all throughout, and the ending absolutely has been hyped for Red God, hopefully coming out next year. I think it's supposed to. When in 2025? I have no clue, but yeah, I'm hyped. I am pumped for that. It's gonna be awesome. Now, I know there's probably so much more to say, and I can go in depth talking about different characters and stuff, but I mean, that's not really what this video is. I just kind of wanted to talk about the things that come to my mind. I know it's kind of random and I'm rambling all over the place. I just wanted to talk about the notable things from my experience of both books, particularly the problems that I did have with Dark Age, and how much Lightbringer made up for it. They're both awesome books. I love Red Rising. I'm fully invested. And yeah, that's going to be about it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed me rambling on. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.